Your fear is holding you hostage. It's like you got one of those newspaper letters like you see in the movies where all of the letters are cut out and they're all uneven and they're on this piece of paper that came folded up in an envelope. That's the letter that's holding you back. Hi, my name is Sheila. Welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to talk about how you're letting fear make more decisions about your life than you're making for yourself. Yeah, that's a big one, right? Let's just be frank with ourselves, because usually we aren't. We hide behind excuses, relationships, money, responsibilities. We throw all of these other things out there to say why we can't do something. In the background, what's really going on is we're just afraid. We're afraid to step up, we're afraid to step out, we're afraid to step in to what we're supposed to be doing with our lives, or what we even want to do with our lives. It's like we did receive a letter that is holding us hostage, and we feel like we can't do anything because something bad is going to happen. This part of us that's inside of ourselves that's not letting us be who we are, well, just to be clear about it, we sent that message to ourselves. We like to blame everybody else for it, but that's a message we're sending to ourselves that we aren't ready to really believe enough in ourselves to own it. So let's first talk about why that's the case. And I'm going to step into this as a Black woman because that is what I am. I can't speak for white men. I can't speak for someone who's a veteran. I can't speak for someone who has a disability. I don't have those attributes or characteristics that I'm bringing to this conversation, so I can only speak from my own perspective. And that is not meant to put anybody else's experience or perspective down. A lot of times we say we can't do something, and like I said before, we come up with a lot of excuses. Those excuses are typically rooted in things that have gone on in the past. Some of those things may have been within our control. Some of those things may have not. Some of those things may have occurred decades before we were ever even born, and yet we're in this sort of position where we're reaping, if you want to use that word, the benefits and consequences of those decisions. If you think about some of the legislation that was in place that wouldn't allow women to do certain things or wouldn't allow Blacks to do certain things, then you understand how the legacy of those laws can impact where you are today. Sometimes if you listen to statisticians and other analysts talk about numbers and make predictions, they will tell you that they can look at someone's zip code and give you an idea of what the future opportunities or prosperity might be for someone from that zip code. So imagine for a second that you live in a very wealthy part of your city as opposed to someone who lives in a low wealth part of a city. They look at the zip code. They know what's going on in areas of poverty and how those decreased economic opportunities will impact people later on. So a lot of what goes on now is to some extent based on some things that may have happened in the past that had absolutely nothing to do with us. That being said, okay, and I like to say this, your past experiences, these sort of things that have gone on either inside or outside of your circle, don't dictate what your future has to be. You still have the opportunity to take responsibility for it and to start to implement some changes that can change and redirect what your future outcome could be. But you have to own up to it. You have to be willing to say, you know what? Aside from all that, in spite of all of that, and because of all of that, I am going to step into who I am, and I'm going to start to take responsibility in terms of what I want my future to look like. Another thing that sort of comes into play in regards to how we let fear hold us hostage is the past is over there, but sometimes we're so caught up in the present, especially in terms of what other people think about us, what we want them to think about us, the impressions that we want to have. And in some instances, that can be legitimate. I was having a conversation with my daughter the other day, and she was talking about a friend of hers and how she did not think that that person understood the digital footprint that the person was leaving behind. Those were her words, not mine, and she is 20 years old. And so she understands that your social media image can impact what your future opportunities look like and what your present opportunities look like, because people judge us. They judge us all the time. We judge people, okay? Some of you right now are judging my hair. Some of you are judging my makeup. What has she got on? What kind of lipstick does she have on? Some people are saying, can I see the rest of that dress? I'm not sure that's a good color on her. That's a good look for her. We judge people all the time. We judge them in good ways. We judge them in bad ways. We use it as a yardstick to measure ourselves and to try to figure out where we fit in and where we stand in terms of what we want for ourselves. So there's this sort of measuring that's going on. But in some instances, we use it as a crutch, and we let that fear of what other people think keep us from, again, stepping into who we really are, because we're so afraid of what they might say, what they might write about us. And those sorts of things cause us to take a look at ourselves and say, hey, well, maybe I won't do this, maybe I won't do that. And sometimes there is a good reason for that. We don't necessarily want to be doing things that might hurt us in the future, but we don't want to put ourselves in a place where we never truly are happy because we're too afraid to be who we really are. In the end, those people really don't matter. They are not the people that you're seeking love from. They aren't necessarily a part of your personal relationships. They aren't necessarily family members. They aren't people who support and advocate for you, and yet you're really caught up with what they think. They aren't paying your bills. They aren't gonna put you through college. When your car breaks down, they're probably not someone you're going to call. As a matter of fact, you might not even have them in your phone. We really truly need to find a way to clip them right out of our lives, and the fear that we associate with feeling like we have to be responsible for what they're thinking and letting that dictate what we do. One of the other reasons we let fear take hostage of us is because we're actually sometimes afraid of success. Like, what does success look like for us? And we're afraid that if we get it, we won't even be accepting of it. It's like that person who loves you unconditionally, and yet we aren't ready. And we aren't ready usually because we don't feel like we're worthy of it. There are some self-esteem issues that we need to take a look at when we're in that position, because here it is, a blessing that's given to you, and you finally now have this opportunity to step into the goodness and grace that's being given to you in terms of what you want in life. And yet you still don't feel like it's yours. You don't feel like you should have it. You're afraid of what that might actually look like, that success, that feeling of finally making it. That's a whole different kind of self-analysis that needs to go on, because that letter that you received has now said to you, even if you pay up the dues in order to get rid of the fear, you pay up the money, you know, whatever's holding you hostage to get rid of that fear, you're still now saying, even if I meet the terms, I still don't feel like I'm worthy of being free of that fear. So how do we start to accept the fact that, okay, I've let myself be held hostage by this and I don't know how to get out of it? How do I get out of it? There are a few things that we could probably do to help us get out of it. It's going to take time. All these things always take time. I tell people that all the time when I'm working with business owners and people who are looking to change things up and to start something new. It's not anything that's ever going to happen overnight. You didn't get into that position overnight. You're not going to get out of it overnight. So it will definitely take some time. But one of the things we can start to do is to take a look at our environment, what that looks like, who we're around, the pressures that we allow ourselves to be influenced by. Because a lot of times we don't have to be a part of that friend group. We don't have to be a part of that organization. We don't necessarily have to show up for all of the things that we think we have to show up. We don't even have to have all of the things that we think we have to have. Once we understand that we can draw the line in the sand in terms of protecting ourselves so that we can let go of some of these things that are bringing fear into our life, we can start to be less held hostage by them. But it does require this first step of sort of analyzing what's going on, why it's going on, and then starting to repair that by removing some of that from our lives. There have been plenty of times in my life where I have felt the fear of not succeeding with something. So for instance, probably one of the biggest fears that I had was going through law school for 3 years, submitting my application to take the bar, then showing up for this 2-day exam. The fear that you have is that you're not going to pass the first time around. That's a really big fear. You've put a lot of time, that's 3 years of your life that you could have been doing something else. You could have been making money. You could have started a family. You could have been traveling. You could have had all sorts of job opportunities. You put all of those things on hold in order to go to law school for 3 years, not make hardly any money, possibly go into debt, and come out not knowing if you're going to pass this one test, this 1 2-day exam that may determine what happens to you for the next few years. There is a level of fear associated with that I cannot begin to tell you brings forth a lot of stress to law students every single year. And I was definitely one of those students. Of course, one of the things that I did was to make sure that I prepared and planned to the best of my ability so that the level of fear was minimized, because I had a strategy in place that I felt would work out, and that I knew that part of success with the law school exam had to do with faith and confidence in yourself. Most law students, if they've made it through law school, they already know the answers to the test. That's not what's going to fail them. As I went through my last year, I remember sitting in a number of courses, and that was the one thing that they told us. You already know all of the answers. You just need to have the self-confidence and the work ethic to be able to work through 2 days of an exam under pressure in a room full with tons of other law students, with a lot of stress going on and a lot of mental self-talk going on in order to be able to make it through. When people don't make it through the first time, their self-esteem takes a dive. They take a real hit with that. And the likelihood that they pass the second time goes down. So it was so important to me to make sure that I did everything that I could in terms of studying, in terms of preparation, but also in terms of my mental strength to make sure that that part of the fear was not there, at least not to that extent. But it required me to step in and take control of it. the next time you start to think about being held hostage by fear, because that's what I think you might want to consider. I'm letting myself be held hostage by this, and therefore I'm not doing certain things. What is your plan for getting out from underneath that? Because even in the real world, there has to be a scenario in place where the person who is held hostage, there is someone out there who has a plan, who is saying, okay, we're going to work to help this person get out of that situation. In your case, it's us. We may have an accountability team, but in the end, we're the ones who make the decisions about what getting out of a hostage situation looks like. Nobody else is coming to save us except us. Again, my name is Shelia. Hope you got something out of this video. Don't forget to subscribe and stick around for other videos. Mwah. Peace.